Well, hello to the first year Fast Trackers, and welcome to this exciting new podcast just for you. We will be covering the weeks of November 6th and November 13th, and there is quite a bit to cover, so let's dive right in. If you have not already done so, go and get your calendar, your agenda, your phone, however it is that you are keeping track of all this work that you have to do. Remember, if what you have is not working for you, if you haven't found a system that you like yet, that Carrie gave us some good resources in her workshop the other week, and I've uploaded that information onto Omnivox as part of the documents for the observing course. So she shared with us this calendar, which has the remaining weeks of the semester on it, which made us all gasp. But that's it. That's the time that's left for this semester, so that can be helpful to stay organized. And she also gave us this template for a weekly schedule where you could break down all of your class time, all of your homework, and all of your other commitments, work, life, having fun, sleeping, all that kind of stuff. So fast track, you need to stay organized. And so, as I say, if you haven't already found something that works for you, maybe try some of these things that Carrie has shared with us, and that might work for you. All right, let's talk assignments, fast trackers. And as I say, there's a lot to get through, so let's breathe through the nose and stay calm. Here is your master schedule for the 2 weeks in question. And let's start with the week of November 6th. First of all, for affective relationships, Jean asks you to read chapter 6 on the very important topic of resilience. For my observing course, to prepare for class on Monday, can you please read chapter 13 and review the PowerPoint that is called Preparing to Observe that I uploaded onto Omnivox for you. On Monday, we will have time in class in observing to work on the group observation plan. Please bring whatever you think you will need to that meeting. Documents, resources, books, articles, checklists, whatever you think you're going to need. You might also consider bringing a computer if you think that's going to help to make the best use of your planning time, because on Tuesday it will be week 1 of the data gathering phase of that assignment. And so as we discussed in class, you will be missing the first hour of Grace's teamwork and communication course that day. The lab sections are flipped. So on Tuesday, November 7th, Fast Trackers, you will be coming to the lab from 10 to 11. Very important. Also, on the Wednesday afternoon of that same week, we will have more in-class time to work on the group observation plan and to start the report that goes with that assignment, and time to discuss any changes, modifications, additions you want to make to your group's observation plan. All right, you also have that week in your Intro to Practicum course, your past day reflection paper is due. That's worth 10% of your final grade. I know on past day you were doing your daycare visit, but I also know that for Intro to Practicum you watched a video with Judy, and so that reflection of that video is due next week on the Thursday. You also have for Intro to Practicum, you're following the experience and your supervisor observation notes from the activities that were implemented in class, and each of those is worth 5% of your final grade. There will also be an in-class assignment in Intro to Practicum next week, worth 10% of your final grade, and you need to bring your textbook to class to do that assignment. And finally, on Thursday, November 9th, in Intro to Practicum, you will have in-class time to work on your instructional video assignment, a very important assignment. All right. In Intro to ECE on that same Thursday, your past day reflection about your daycare visit is due. That paper is worth 20% of your final grade, so an important assignment there. And on Friday of next week, your draft philosophy is due for Diane's approaches class, and that is an important step towards completing that philosophy assignment. Phew, that's a lot. Let's now look at the week of November 13th. Jean asks you for affective relationships to read chapter 10 on the also very important topic of self-regulation. how do educators communicate their expectations and their rules to young children. So that's very important, all about helping children become more self-regulated. In observing, we will have more class time to work on the group observation plan and to keep working on the report. The Tuesday of that week, so that's Tuesday, November 14th, will be the second and final information gathering week in the lab for the observing plan assignment, and the lab sections will be unflipped, so back to your regular 9 a.m. lab on that Tuesday. In teamwork and communication, your case study analysis in-class assignment will happen on that day, and so that is on the Tuesday of that week, and that is worth 20% of your final grade. So that's a very important assignment, in-class assignment for teamwork. Okay, also on Tuesday, in approaches, you will have time to work on your presentations, and I will talk more a little bit about that in a minute. In your Intro to ECE class, there are also presentations about your past day daycare visit, and that is worth 5%. In observing, on that Wednesday, the 15th of November, we will have class time to work on finalizing your group observation plan report. That's an important part of that assignment, and to start working on the analysis assignment. So very important classes in observing, to make sure that you come to all of those classes for the next 2 weeks. On Thursday, in Introduction to Practicum, your instructional video is due. You will have had class time to work on that in previous weeks. It is due on the 16th of November, and that is worth 15% of your final grade. Also, just a reminder that that is the last class that you will have for Intro to Practicum for this semester. In Intro to ECE, more presentations. I'm not sure if you are scheduled for the Wednesday or the Thursday, but there are presentations in the week of November 13th rather, and as I say, that's worth 5%. In approaches, on the Friday, your philosophy is due, and that is worth 15% of your final grade in that class. And speaking of your approaches class, just a reminder once again that it will jump in and fill the void left by the end of Judy's Intro to Practicum course. So on Thursday, November 23rd, instead of Intro to Practicum, you will have the approaches class for 3 hours. And from what I've heard, that is when you will be doing presentations in that class. But I'll have more details about that in my next podcast. So, as I say, lots going on. First year Fast Trackers, if you have any great advice, suggestions, recommendations, tips, or tools that you use to stay organized and manage your time efficiently and effectively, please send that along to me, and I will share that in future podcasts, and you could become a podcast star. And speaking of podcast stars, here are some photos that I took at Halloween 2017, featuring some people you may know. So here is Marissa, Officer Marissa, one of our first year students, a very adorable unicorn, Kelsey with her newly shaven head. Here's Ralu and her donut. Here is somebody you might know with her friend in real life. It's Alessia and Jessica. We've got Marie-Pierre, the fairy, dressed up in her cute wings. Kelly with her beautiful makeup and something sticking out of her head. Not sure what that was. Baby Jade. We have Christina and Jessica, some of the second year Fast Trackers in their costumes. We have Jenna and her orange Halloween-y socks. And these two came trick-or-treating in my office and ended up giving me candy. It's Marina Lini and Kelsey from the second year. So that's it for this podcast. As always, post your comments on YouTube if you have anything you'd like to say about a podcast. Remember that you can always get a transcript underneath the podcast if you are distracted by my face. And of course, stay tuned for the next announcement, because that will mean that a new podcast is available just for you. That's it, Fast Trackers. Have a great week and have a great weekend. Bye.